So in this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. Please make sure that everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem, and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted. When you are finished, the judges will ask you questions for 10 to 15 minutes. During the Q&A, both you and the judges stay in character, and after the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside the role-playing. Everyone ready to begin?
Hello, everyone. We're SJK Consulting, Ethereum Reducing Footprint Through Sustainable Crypto Practices. I'm Sonali, the Ethical Consultant.
I'm Karelia, the Legal Consultant.
And I'm Shanava, the Finance Consultant. Our team has 2 sustainable development business goals. The first one is to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Second is to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns.
So as a consultant firm, we develop a plan and structure before starting the research and providing the solutions. So the issue that we identify is that Bitcoin's blockchain has footprint implications. So right now it is a current issue, especially due to global warming and all the implications that it's having on the environment right now. So there are 3 factors that are really important when doing these solutions, that is climate change, the new generations, and also the new technologies and processes that could be implemented. Our objective as a consulting firm is to make Bitcoin more sustainable, and we have analyzed the ethical, legal, and finance implications. And we are going to go in depth in potential solutions such as renewable energy sources, mining regulation, and Bitcoin funds.
Some important factors to consider when thinking about our problem is when we look at Bitcoin and we see the climate change problems that is happening with Bitcoin. So there's a general concern about climate change and global warming. We have to think about the next generations when we also think about Bitcoin and how this will affect the next generations and how their society and their world will be drastically different due to this new practice of cryptocurrency. And we have to also think about the new technologies and processes. Before, there was just a basic setup to trade Bitcoin, and now we use such specialized machines and technology that is taking up so much power that we will go into, which is a very interesting factor. So the implications, we have legal issues. Our cryptocurrency legal matters are troubling. Ethical issues, our cryptocurrency ethical standpoint is questionable, and financial matters, which are deceiving. So the ethical dilemma. First, it is bad for the environment. Second, it exploits poor people. Third, it harbors illegal activity. And fourth, it thrives on ignorance and greed. So starting with how it's bad for the environment. Mining requires a high amount of electricity needed to power complex algorithms and non-renewable energy sources used for mining. So to explain the process a little bit, the way that cryptocurrency is exchanged is that it has to go through a mining process. And a single Bitcoin transaction is estimated to burn 2,292 kilowatts an hour of electricity. And that's enough to power a typical US household for over 78 days. The computer processing power needed for the Bitcoin network alone could result in a global temperature rise of 2 degrees Celsius by 2050. Cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, exploits poor people in developing countries. It disproportionately impacts vulnerable and developing countries globally. There's 2 types of miners that I will go into explaining. So there's a proof of work miner and there's a proof of stake miner. And the proof of work miner takes advantage of economic instabilities, weak regulations, and access to cheap energy and other resources. Around 1/3 of these proof of work miners are currently in countries with a human development index below 0.85. Several provincial Bitcoin mining bans across China have occurred in 2021, including Inner Mongolia, Xinjiang, Yunnan, and Sichuan provinces, and this has forced much of the country's mining infrastructure to relocate. So countries are realizing the negative effects of this and the cause of this, and they are already trying to make a change. So we really wanted to bring awareness to this issue. Chinese mining operations relocate to developing countries, for example, towards less politically stable ex-Soviet borderlands. Electricity supplies are often accessed illicitly, fueling conflict over the resource. So I have a graph here showing the HDI index. So you see that the countries that these Bitcoin miners are exploiting are countries with fewer resources, and even those few resources they're taking away from them. So this is also an example of a proof of work miner versus a proof of stake miner. A proof of work miner has to go through this long process. So they go in the blockchain, they complete and solve difficult puzzles, and they use high computer processing powers. They do this to maintain the anonymity and safety of the transaction. And it takes a ton of energy just to do one transaction. Whereas a proof of stake miner, there is no competition in the block creator, and the algorithm is very simple. And it just requires less energy being a proof of stake miner. Thirdly, the ethical dilemma is that it harbors illegal activity. Money laundering occurs with cryptocurrency practices. There was a Wall Street Journal actually published this week stating that hackers stole more than 600 million in crypto in one transaction. Trade in illicit goods and services. Illicit transactions totaled between 14 billion in 2021 and 7.8 billion in 2020. And counterfeit operations have begun using the darknet markets, and there's a significant trade in illicit drugs and stolen identities in these markets. And terrorism financing is also a difficult issue that we see. The next generation of terrorist financing is in cryptocurrency due to the anonymity and irreversibility of the payments. And lastly, cryptocurrency thrives on ignorance and greed. So research indicates that every $1 created by Bitcoin Energy uses 49 cents needs to spend on mitigating the network associated environmental issues and public health issues. This is just like an example. So in 2019 and early 2020, there was a big craze about Dogecoin and how this was like the coin to buy. And there was just like a big frenzy going all over this. And if you like look at, real people's stories, they lost all their money, they lost all their savings. And just like reading the statement, like trying to understand this like new world of cryptocurrency, the people who own like the majority of it, we don't even know. So there's no transparency in that aspect. And basically like they just call them like whales. So like whales own like this big chunk of cryptocurrency, and they have like secret group chats where they do like pump and dump. So like they like increase the price of the crypto and then they dump the price of the crypto, which is similar in the stock exchange market, but in the stock exchange market, it's a lot more regulated. So you can only buy the stocks like 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, whereas crypto can be exchanged at any time, at any hour, taking up so much energy. So these were the ethical problems that we saw.
So speaking about legal implications, we have to understand that currently there is no law that is truly regulating cryptocurrencies, because cryptocurrencies are not issued or backed up by any government in the world or any central bank. Currently, about 60% of Americans, about 40 million people have invested, traded, or used cryptocurrencies according to the Biden administration. And for that reason, Biden administration and also US legislators are investigating how cryptocurrencies operations will be damaging the global efforts that as a countries they are taking to combat climate change. And also in 2021, the Congress introduced in total 35 bills focused on US crypto policy. So the congressional members introduced 3 different types of bills. So first of all, the cryptocurrency regulation, second, the applications of blockchain technology, and third, central bank digital currency, which is CBDC. So the first one is related to how agencies such as the SEC and also the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission will regulate crypto and blockchain tokens in the future. The second one is focused on ways to promote the technology underlying crypto within the United States and also in other sectors of the economy, because it also affects the economy as a whole. And the third one is also focused on the concept of CBDCs. This is continued to be explored, and some policymakers perceive a risk to the US dollar's position as the world's reserve currency based on these technology innovations, because obviously right now it's not being legislated or controlled by any government. So all of these 3 areas are equally important. Moving forward, we can see some of the bills that were introduced last year. For example, the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act, that there was a great deal of concern regarding how Bitcoin miners, hardware and software providers in the ecosystem might be impacted by how to report these taxes to the IRS. So we noticed that this year actually you needed to report if you did investments in cryptocurrencies as well. The next one is the Blockchain Innovation Act. So, for example, the Congressman Brett Urey will direct the Secretary of Commerce to conduct a study and submit to a Congress a report on the state of the blockchain technology and its use in consumer protection. And also on the next one, we can see as well, there is a Central Bank Digital Currency Study Act of 2021. So this one is to conduct also a study on the CBDCs based on a January 2021 survey by the Bank of International Settlements that found that 86% of central banks representing countries with close to 72% of the world's populations and 91% of global economic output are currently or will soon be engaged in anything related to CBDC. So right now we are at a stage that the government is doing studies about the subject in order to make a final decision about it. In this year, for example, on March, the President Biden signed an executive order that's titled Ensuring Responsible Development of Digital Assets. So this is regarding like the US government strategy for these digital assets that includes cryptocurrencies or any form of exchange in the blockchain. Also, this represents the first like government approach to weigh like the benefits and the risks of these digital assets. So it is like a general policy statement that the government is really into this matter and really thinking about it to make a decision further.
Next is some of the financial challenges and the stability of cryptocurrency. There are 3 general areas, which is the crypto ecosystem, stablecoins, and macro financial. So in the crypto ecosystem area, there are operational, cyber, and governance risks, the integrity of the markets, as well as the availability and the reliability of the data for current cryptocurrency practices. And then there are challenges from cross-border activities. Stablecoins aren't necessarily, they vary in the stability. So there are questions about how stable they actually are. The domestic and global regulatory and supervisory approaches. And then macro financial, there are cryptoization, capital flows and restrictions. There are monetary and policy transmissions, and then questions about the bank intermediation. So more on the operational risks, there are some operational risks due to significant downtime when there are failures and disruptions that prevent the use of services on the platforms, and that results in large losses in customer funds. Some of these risks have coincided with periods of high transaction activity and can result from poorly designed systems and controls. The cyber risks include high-profile cases of hacking, as mentioned before by my colleagues, hacking-related thefts of customer funds, such as attacks that take place on their wallets and exchanges. And this can also take place on the consensus algorithms that underpin the operation of blockchains in general. Some of the governance risks involve the lack of transparency around how cryptocurrency assets are issued and distributed, which has resulted in investor losses. Some implications of sustainable blockchain technology. So more sustainable blockchain technology has the potential to reduce supply chain related costs for businesses between about 0.4 and 0.8%. It can also speed up and reduce the cost of transactions by reducing errors on orders and the goods and receipts and the invoices and other documents that due to less need for the manual reconciliation. So that is one way to reduce the cost of transactions. It'll also be able to decrease the amount of thefts and backdoor transactions that occur in the digital market and boost financial inclusion by creating more paths for those who aren't able to access those services as easily as others.
So what are our solutions to the board? Our solutions are to innovate, to create a more sustainable blockchain that requires less energy. We need advanced technology that's going to help us make a more sustainable ecosystem. And then our second solution is promote proof of stake mining over proof of work mining. We know that the proof of work mining requires significantly more energy. So coins that use proof of stake mining include Cardano, Tezos, and Ethereum 2.0. So just promoting that these coins that we know have a more sustainable impact in the future and which coins are gonna help our future generations and use less energy. And we also wanna regulate the exchange, specifically the supply chain, through voluntary market mechanisms, plausibility checks, smart contract tokenization, and peer-to-peer trust. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you. I have a question. So one of your solutions is to promote the proof of stake versus proof of work type of mining. What does that mean exactly? Like, how are you going to promote one type of mining over another? Who are you going to promote that to? And how is that going to make an impact on all of the different challenges that you pointed out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much. So we believe that by promoting it, we can make people aware of the differences between these two types of minings, because people who are buying these cryptocurrencies, I don't think they're aware that different coins require different mining. So I think just having like an advocacy standpoint and making people more aware and making boards more aware and just being very vocal about this would improve our sustainability mission.
I have a related question to that. I mean, what are the financial implications of proof of work versus proof of stake? Is proof of stake more expensive? What are the cost implications for us as the board of blockchain.com?
Yeah, so proof of stake is not more expensive, but the difficulty with proof of stake is because there's like less security with proof of stake. It's easier for the transaction to go to get leaked basically. So just working on making proof of stake also a more secure transaction would also be one of our goals. But the fee is not much different. The only difference is proof of work has more layers to it, so it takes up more energy, whereas proof of stake has like less security measures, like you have to solve less puzzles to enter it. So that is the biggest difference between those two. But in energy, it's like a world of a difference. Like proof of work mining takes up so much energy. And as we saw before, like if we continue promoting these coins that use this type of mining, by 2050, the global warming is gonna rise 2 degrees Celsius by 2050. And it's just enough power to power small countries. So just making that switch.
And is there a financial aspect to the solutions that you're proposing? For example, do we need to make some investment in the promotions that you're talking about or the regulations that you'd like to see? What are the costs and what's the return on that investment for us?
So the return on the investment would be just a lower cost in transaction. The numbers again, let me go to the slide. Sorry. So it would reduce costs for businesses between 0.4 and 0.8%. And that would be able to, those funds that would be able to be reinvested back into the company in other ways.
So as you mentioned the idea of regulation, I'm wondering if you're thinking about fully public regulation, the government imposes something upon us, or a public-private independent body that we would be part of that would do self-regulation, or are you talking about us as blockchain.com Inc. Being leaders in adopting our own self-regulation as a positioning, marketing, quality initiative? I'm not sure where on the spectrum you see regulation.
I think as of right now, it is a combination of efforts. Obviously, we will need efforts privately speaking, because every company has to do their own policies in order to move forward. As Sonali mentioned, it is really about being aware about the benefits, the pros and cons of every system. So I think it's also a decision that has to begin with every company itself. But we don't think that is going to move forward if there is not any kind of public support or any legal support in order to move forward. So I think it's a combination of both, but it has to start with the companies itself. Also because right now the governments are actually talking about it. So if the board itself or the company itself doesn't change or don't make any policies regarding that, then the government is going to do it. So if we talk about like private companies, it might affect them more if they don't start doing the change right now or before that happens.
Yeah, what would be our role in promoting or driving the regulation that you'd like to see?
I think that as the board of the company, it is really key to have like a common a common mission and a common vision of how we're going to implement any changes of the company, because if not, you're not going to have like a strategy in order to implement it. So as a board, like you have to make the final decision in order to say like, yes, we're going to move forward with this process, and then we can do this plan to implement it. And then it's going to move forward to the other levels of the company.
Right. I'm wondering what is the company's role though in getting to a place where we have the kind of regulation that you think will be helpful to solve the various challenges that you've laid out? How do we influence policymaking? How is it that we're going to drive and achieve some kind of regulation?
I think talking about the whole industry itself, I think it is a really big topic right now. And I do think that private organizations do help with the implementation of public policies, because at the end, it is a give and take process. I do think that companies do influence the government to do policy. Sometimes they are good, sometimes they are bad. So in this case, I think as a board and as a company itself, also there are other Bitcoins companies. So as a private matter, you can all work together to do policies that are standardized for the industry, and then do a kind of negotiation process also with the policies that the government is speaking of as of right now. So I do think that's why it's really important to begin with the company itself.
If we're able to kind of make some changes so that the cryptocurrency is more sustainable, do you think there's an opportunity to, I mean, how does that route to sustainability compare to maybe traditional banking? Like, do you think there's an opportunity to get more maybe younger people who are focused on sustainability interested in cryptocurrency, if we can maybe get to a place where we can say it's more sustainable than traditional banking or investing? Do you think there's that opportunity?
I think there is an opportunity to do that especially with I guess groups who are focused on sustainability, environmentally friendly groups, and gearing it towards that market of younger people. And with the way that technology is going now, and everyone's usually on their phone, people rarely go to banks, at least I'd say in the younger market, people rarely go to banks, and they're complete their transactions more digitally and are interested in investing and doing it in sustainable ways. I think that opens the window for more people to do these practices and be interested in them, which would again bring in more money for the company.
Yeah, going off of the sentiment, I would say as well that Gen Z is very into sustainability, and like as a generation as a whole, Gen Z really promotes sustainability. So really like marketing them and like explaining to them the significance of this and the implications of this will be our route. Like, this is the way we want to do it.
I don't always agree with all my fellow board members. You know, we all have different opinions. And I want to ask the question about whether we should be adopting sort of a minimum age, actually. I feel very distressed by people being harmed by scammers and hackers and having a lack of knowledge to be participating in cryptocurrencies. So I wonder if, like alcohol or cannabis or even voting, should we be putting an age minimum on people participating in our crypto products?
I think we could put an age minimum, but the issue would still arise in whether or not, which is, you know, another kind of bigger problem in itself, whether or not people are receiving financial literacy and financial education as a whole, because, you know, no matter what age they fall in, not everyone, there are people who are older and, you know, older generations who still do not know what the financial implications are, what is cryptocurrency in general, for them to be able to make sound decisions and determine whether or not the practices are sustainable or if they agree with them. So I think if there were to be an age minimum, maybe making that age minimum to be around between 22 to 25, which I think is the typical age range for people to be out of at least undergraduate and maybe having taken some type of financial, personal finance class or something like that.
Okay, any more questions from the judges? All right, sounds like we've got all the information that we need. So we can break character now and spend 5 or 10 minutes giving feedback. And I'll go ahead and start with that. So first of all, great job. Probably didn't help that you had the wrong link to start with and we're trying to get in, and that probably added to the nerves a little bit. So you did a really great job considering the circumstances and the challenges getting into the room this morning. Maybe a couple points of feedback. It's really important always to set the stage and explain sort of who are you in this and who are we in this. And you did a great job explaining who you are. You're the consulting firm coming in to present on some solutions to these 3 challenges. And each of you was responsible for one of the 3 areas. And that was really a helpful roadmap as you went through the presentation, because, you know, we knew we were either in the ethical section or the legal section or the financial section. So that part was really well done. I was a little bit confused about who we were, the judges. You know, one way that it's nice to set this up sometimes is to come in and you know, greet us as, in this case, the board of this company, right? And say you've tasked us, our consulting firm, with addressing these 3 challenges. And so, thanks for this opportunity, and we're excited to share the solutions today. So, that's an approach that you can take to help set the stage and identify roles for everybody. And that really helps the judges or the recipients of the presentation to understand, give context to what you're saying and understand why you're presenting certain challenges and what we should be hearing in terms of solutions to those challenges. On the solutions, I think that part could have been beefed up a little bit. In fact, you had quite a bit of time remaining in your 25 minutes, and it would have been nice to see some of that time used developing the proposed solutions. You developed the challenges really, really well. In each of those categories, you identified a number of challenges and issues that you were tackling. And then when we got to the solutions, you identified topics of solutions, but then didn't really develop each one of the solutions. So there was, I think that's why there were a lot of questions from the judges about, well, how exactly would we do this, or what's involved? Because that part just wasn't developed out very much. And the last thing I'll say is great job fielding the questions. We did have a lot of questions. You stayed really calm during all of that. You never looked phased or rattled. You addressed all of the questions, and I thought the answers were always on point and addressing what the judge was asking. So overall, very nicely done.
I think that you guys did a really good job tackling a really difficult topic. I mean, this was a really big challenge for you, and I certainly learned a lot, so I appreciate that. I really wasn't aware of some of these ethical and sustainability issues surrounding cryptocurrency, so I appreciated the opportunity to learn. And I think you guys did a really good job, as Tiffany said, laying out the problems. And I think a little bit more work developing the solutions. But overall, I thought you guys did a great job. I learned a lot. I think maybe just some advice to help in a future scenario would be, I think you almost tried to tackle too much. I think you could simplify a little bit, cut down a little bit of the material on your slides, because I found myself both trying to read, which on some slides was a lot of information, at the same time trying to listen to what was being said. So I think if you can maybe simplify a little bit and maybe try to tackle a little bit less, then you can get into a little bit more depth on each item, rather than trying to really do so much over such a large, difficult topic. And then maybe just slow down a little bit in some of your talking. Because again, I think this is a complicated subject with a lot of information. So just me trying to keep up and really grasp everything that's being said and being presented, I think simplifying and slowing down a little bit.
Well, thank you so much for the time you invested in getting acquainted or better acquainted with what is an exploding field, but so diverse in terms of the various aspects of it and the globalization of it. And, you really had to take this much material and bring it down here. And that's a really tough job. As was noted, you were very calm under fire, which is the number one thing for a consultant, to be confident. And 3 of you were very confident in your responses, which was a plus, because consultants are paid a lot to come to talk to the board, so you want to be confident. The one note that I would give is that when I read your write-up, your executive summary, which was nicely composed, you really spent a lot of time on the energy side, or the renewable energy side. And then as you went through the presentation, that really didn't get very much attention. And so again, I think that reflects how big this topic is. So you might want to prioritize. Do we want to talk about quality and the impact on people and financial awareness and health? Or do we want to talk about energy and renewable sources? Or do we want to talk about regulation? Because there's not necessarily, as a board, we probably would have been happy to hear about only one of those, versus trying to cover all 3 lightly. And then again, the consistency between your written work and your presentation. So again, really big topic. I learned a lot, and I have a few things that I can put to use in my daily life about, POWs and POSs. So thank you very much.